fiends, friends, and familiars. This is Matt Orozco here from Macabre Daily, and I'm joined today by two fine gentlemen. We have Kyle Kauwika Harris and Garret Dillahunt, who are two members of the film The Huntsman. Kyle Kauwika Harris is our co-writer and director, and Garret Dillahunt plays the role of Lincoln in the film, and that'll be out in theaters on February 6th. If you can't catch it in the theaters for whatever reason, you can watch it at home on February 10th. So, gentlemen, so happy to be here with you, and thank you for taking some time to speak with me.
Yeah,
It's,
thank you. Yeah,
it's great to be here, man. Thanks for
yeah.
having us.
Thanks for having us.
Well, I'm so happy that to have this chat. I just watched The Huntsman last night, had a really good time with it. Definitely, as someone who enjoys kind of more suspense thrillers, it was exactly right up my alley. So I'm really excited for folks to actually get a chance to see this beyond just me. But Kyle, my first question is for you, and of you
Yeah.
and your co-writer Stephen Rittner. What at what point did you all decide, hey, we want to adapt Judith Sanders' novel? What was kind of the inspiration behind it?
Man, my sort of base of operations has been in Oklahoma, just making a lot of indie films, and I'm sort of tight with the crews and the film commission and the rebate system here, the film incentives and stuff like that. And so my producing partner Nick Clement, he lives in Connecticut, and he knew Stephen Rittner because he lives in New York, and this would have been early 2023, like January-ish.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, Nick gives me a call one day and says, "Hey, there's this project based on a novel. There might be some money behind it. You should take a look at it." So they sent me the script, and I read it, and I was like, "Okay, let's start chatting on this." And originally the book was set in the Northeast. And so I thought, is this going to be an issue? And I think they wanted to shoot it up there originally. But I thought, again, my base of operations was in Oklahoma. It doesn't really serve us to go up there. I mean, Nick, take the reins, man. Go make this in Connecticut. And you guys, do your thing. But they were like, you guys have got this sort of system in place, so we'll come down there to you guys. And so we did a short film, proof of concept, and I directed that, I wrote and directed that, and then they gave us the green light, and they started putting money behind it. And I went and did Reverence, this other movie I wrote and directed, and that was in December of 2023. And I think right during the middle of filming, or maybe right before Christmas or right after, I think Mark Ruttman, the casting director, called me on the phone. I was driving, it was snowing outside. He's like, "Hey, you're gonna meet Garret Dillahunt. He wants to meet you." And I was like, "Oh my God." Yeah,
Yeah.
I got shocked because I've seen, the assassination of Jesse James a million times. It's like one of my favorite films. No Country for Old Men. I mean, a million films that are just like those are two of my top 10 favorite films. And I'm a cinephile. Cool Hand Luke is in that
Here's a
top,
cinephile. Yeah.
and Badlands is in that top 10. And then those films. So, I've seen Garrett's face a million times, and there's still this disconnect. Does that make sense? It's a fun disconnect. It's a disconnect in all the right ways. Let's just put it that way. Anyways, um, yeah, so we met with Garret. Garret said, he was interested in doing the project, and we finished casting and went and made the movie in Oklahoma.
That's
In
amazing.
Oklahoma.
In
I mean,
Oklahoma.
I'm glad you did in Oklahoma because I think, well, for one, especially the cost I can imagine in Northeast would probably be a little bit more. So it allows you to do a lot more when you're working
Yeah.
in a place like Oklahoma. But I also think the setting just bodes so well there. I have it, my wife's from Connecticut, so I have a hard time like seeing Connecticut in this movie now that I've seen it in Oklahoma. And Garret, I'm going to echo something that Kyle said, in that I probably watched Raising Hope, I don't know how many
Mm.
times ad nauseum and repeat. So it was wonderful to see kind of you show up in the film, and going kind of leading off of what Kyle was just saying. When you all met, what was it that drew you to the character of Lincoln and the role in particular?
Well, it's funny, I don't really have a um, big checklist of things that I look for when I'm looking for a job. Availability is an issue, and then it's like, do I want to work with these people? Is it a little bit different from the last thing I did? Is there some subtext I can play with here? And I don't know if it's the best way to pick projects, but it's how I do it. And I got to meet Kyle um,
Yeah.
on a Zoom. We had a Zoom meeting, and I don't remember if it was it a No Country for Old Men poster on your wall, or was it a Badlands poster, or it
It was
was
Yeah, it was the No Country for Old Men poster,
It
but it's
was a
also
No
a
Country,
novel.
yeah. And he had
Novel.
a bunch of stuff on his wall that clearly the dude loves movies,
Yeah.
and clearly the dude loves the same kind of movies I love.
Yeah.
So, I mean, before he'd said a word, I was like, oh, I think I like this dude already. Badlands is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a really impossible question when people say, "What's your favorite movie?" But
Yeah.
Badlands is always on that list for me. Anything Terrence Malick and
Oh yeah.
um, so I just liked him right away, um, and I just wanted to do it. I never worked in Oklahoma. He seemed like he knew his stuff. He's really he sort of alluded to it. He's really dialed in his community there, which because he could be doing this anywhere. He's a good filmmaker, and he's a hard Scrabble filmmaker. He's got to be there. But I just love what he's doing. He's got a community there. I don't know if you noticed in the closing credits, he's listed all the background performers even by name. Like that.
Yeah.
That never really happens.
Know them all. Yeah.
Because he knows them. I bet some of them sometimes crew his movies, sometimes are leads in his movies, sometimes he's in their movies. It
Hmm.
just felt to me like this is a guy who deserves more money, he deserves more infrastructure, and he deserves more opportunity because he's gonna be making movies a long time because he loves them. And I
Yeah.
think particularly in this climate, the way this business is today, that's the
Yeah.
exact kind of person we need, you know,
Yeah.
It
someone who
Top
ain't
of the
loves
game.
making
easy.
movies. Hmm?
I said it ain't easy making movies.
No,
No.
it ain't. It's not the business to get in to get rich, if that's your aim.
Right.
He's got other things on his mind than that, a different kind of longevity, and I just have so much respect for that and admiration, and
Thank you.
you just want to be around people like that, and it was a real tonic for me. I really enjoyed that experience.
Yeah, and I one of the things I picked up on, Garrett, is that your role is kind of a little different as Lincoln than some of the other things you played in the past. It's far more subdued and kind of almost dialed back a little bit because you're not only recovering from a coma, but you're kind of a mysterious character to begin with. Do you find it difficult to kind of shift into something that's a little bit more quiet and reserved as opposed to some of the characters you played that are a little bit more, humor fueled
Oh,
or
I don't. I,
eccentric?
I guess I never thought about it like that way. I don't. My whole career has been, even back in acting school, it's been acting teachers saying, "Okay, it's very detailed, Garrett. It's very, but come out, paint on a bigger canvas." They always used to say. So I think I've always struggled with being too small most of the time, but it works well for film. And I guess I haven't really played many people like him. I've played a lot of bad guys, which kind of helps, in Kyle's plan to either throw off the audience or lead them in down different paths, or we can sort of in a meta way kind of play with them that way too. But I just take my clues from the script at hand, and it's all in there, both in the book this is based on and Kyle's script. There's just I mean, how cool. In the opening credits, I'm shot in the head, so that's not a big spoiler. And I get to be in a coma. Then I got what's it like to come out of a coma? And now my eyes all fucked up. Now, what's that like? And we got to sort of answer those questions on the fly. Just the nature of the kind of films that really Kyle and I both make. But there's just not a ton of time for preparation or research. You kind of need to sort of do that on the fly and on your own. And I really leaned on him heavily. And he's a great director that way. He's always eager to talk to you. And um, another thing that happens often on this kinds of projects, television and film both, is you get the script and then just the location you have, it might not work perfectly there, and you need to really be malleable both as a performer and probably even more so as a director to sort of change things slightly to make it fit better, to make it a little more believable. And I just really appreciate someone having those ideas and also willing to hear yours. It's fine if you reject them, but he actually sort of takes them in and decides if that's going to help him or not. And that's just a great way to work.
Yeah, it sounds very collaborative, as far as like doesn't feel like it's one person steering the ship, rather it's an effort of everyone coming together and bringing their ideas. And I think great
Yeah.
films are collaborations, right? They're not one person's.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's
credit.
definitely a boss, and we need a boss. I need a boss. I'm a good first mate, is what I always say. I don't think I'd be good at running the show, but I'm really good at when I key into what boss wants to. I'm good at helping and good at suggesting or editing or whatever. But I need a boss, and it's the perfect kind of boss. It was like that on Deadwood as well. It's just sort of. I need a framework. No country was like that. They had a real strong framework in place, but there's room for the performer to kind of bounce around inside it and still give him what he wants. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I mean, there's once you get the script, that's our blueprint. That's where we're all aiming towards, right? But then it's like we do a couple of takes and we've done that and we've gotten it. I love it when actors just kind of like, okay, I want to do one. I just want to fail miserably.
Mm-mm.
It's like let's just go have fun with a take. And I remember we tried a couple of things, like I remember talking to you one time and like you were sitting in the chair and there's all these people in the room and they were all just kind of talking and moving around you and you're sitting there. I was like, you know what? I really want to do something. Like just if we just wheel over and play with a plant or something, like or
Mm-mm.
just like trying stuff, or when we took the shoes off and walked into the yard.
Yeah, yeah. That was
It's
sweet.
like I like to play a little bit. It's like there's a script, and yeah, if as long as the context of the script is still being shot, like this stuff that we're working on, as long as we can play a little bit, I think I always have fun finding like little happy mistakes, or not mistakes, but just happy moments that um I think that's so much more fun. I always shoot with two cameras, and so I call the other cameras my JFK. I don't remember where the shot's going to come from sometimes, and so it's like it's when I get in the edit room, I look at B cam, I'm like, oh, I got all this stuff too. It's so,
Mm-mm.
but the A cam was what I was relying on, but B cam's like it's so much more infinite cool shit over here. I didn't even
Does
realize.
it just give you stuff to cut to for atmosphere or whatever? Or
I like to sometimes be surprised with what
mm-mm.
I get in the edit room. Like my primary is A cam, and I know what that's doing the whole time, and I'll set B cam up somewhere, and I'll kind of look at it and be like, okay, this is good, but I won't watch its playback ever. And then once we get in the edit room and I start to see it, I forget what we've got. And then my editor says, look at all this stuff. And I'm like, oh man, this is so cool. And then
Mm-mm.
you have fun. I like to be real sure what I get on ACAM. But it also depends on the movie you're shooting too, and what it calls for. But yeah, anyways, sorry.
Mm. No, that's
No,
interesting. No, that's interesting stuff.
no, that's a good digression. We love these things because it helps us understand. I think a lot of folks will never work on a film set. And so they'll never understand what actually goes on behind the camera and around the camera, whatever we don't see on the screen. And
Hmm.
so I think the idea that we get the sense to hear, like, that we don't get it right the first time every time, that there is this kind of level of ability to improv things as needed, and that there is a malleability and an adjustability to how the film could look and how the characters show up. I think, we see the end product, right? We don't get to see the part that goes into that. So I think it's fascinating. I think that's what people watch interviews like this for, is to understand how did it get made, and what are the things that happen along the way to get it to the state it ended up at. And in thinking about it adapting from a book, Kyle, I think, was there anything that the transition from page to screen is always a little difficult because you have to make decisions on what am I going to keep, what am I going to cut. Was there anything that, you felt really strongly about that you needed to keep, or things there that you ended up having to cut?
I was a little nervous because when you got a 300-page book, and then how do you extract 120 pages from it, and then
Mm.
put it all on the screen where it all, everyone can be happy with what the outcome of it is. I know we did some we shot a bunch of stuff that was supposed to be in the film, but I ended up doing this opening credit sequence instead and just sort of compacted it into like a 3 or 4 minute opening title sequence.
Hmm.
But we shot those as complete scenes and stuff. Um, Trying to think. As far as the script changing, I think the only thing I really did to it was just taking it from the Northeast, setting in the Midwest. In addition, there's a lot of characters just speaking in rooms, and there's a lot of quiet moments, a lot of eyes, a lot of I call it eye fuckery, just
Yeah.
and so there's just a lot of that going on with these sort of tonal musical pieces that we've created before we even started shooting the film. So I already knew what the tone was going to be. And I guess so when we're zoomed in like that, sometimes I like to zoom out a little bit and get outside of our head and start being a little more physical. And so I wrote, I'm ex-military, and so I wrote in some bigger stuff to have some bigger moments, like we had like a SWAT team raid thing, and it's in the film, and just elevating a couple of the smaller characters that were in the novel and that were in Stephen's script that might have just been um, one scene or yeah, it's one scene and done. So I took those and just sort of gave them a little bit more life. Um, and those are those bigger scenes that I was talking about, the bigger action moments or something like that. Um, all of that stuff was sort of, my creation, I feel like in a lot of ways. There was a scene where we shot with Garrett and Sean where Sean takes a big tumble.
Yeah.
And I remember in the script, I think he's like looking for Lincoln in the woods and he gets stuck in a quiet, like in a pond or something. And I was just like, well, maybe you should just tumble down the hill or something. So like stuff like that as a writer, that's the only things that I kind of brought to it differently. And then trying to just also, you know, these types of movies, it's all about the mystery of it, right? So it's these everybody's a suspect until they're not in some ways. And so it's like how do you shoot that to where it's you can create that throughout the entire film because we shoot everything out of order. I think Garrett's first scene he shot with us was the ending of the film. The very end, the end
So
scene.
resting backwards, going from non-coma to coma
Yeah,
almost.
I do believe, I think that's true. And so it's just you're shooting out of order and you're just trying to, all the mental judo of all that, trying to keep all that in my mind. But yeah, man, I don't know. I had,
Sorry.
I had fun making this movie. It was
And
a blast.
I mean, I think that, it's one, I think there's a lot of good chemistry. You and
Yeah.
Sean Garrett have a really good connection on the screen, but also all the other people around that. I don't know the gentleman's name off the top of my head, but the guy who played one of the one who the SWAT team shoots, like even though he has a really kind of small role in terms of like the time on screen, it's really impactful watching someone kind of going through an episode and like the tension that's built in that moment. So, I can imagine it probably a lot harder to get to some of that level of intimacy and vulnerability with each other as performers if you don't have a good relationship with them. And one question I love to ask everybody, I've been told it's a little difficult, but we'll go along with it, is if you were asked to program a double feature with the Huntsman, what do you think would make a good companion piece to watch alongside it?
Hmm.
This is for both of you, so you both can answer.
Well, that's not fair because that's not, that deserves some thought. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be like this long silence here in your interview while we.
Well, I could say what my number one comparable as for the camera was, and so maybe that kind of like um, Jonathan Demme. I'm a huge Jonathan Demme fan. So not just Silence of the Lambs because of the genre serial killer thriller, but like Something Wild and Manchurian Candidate. And so even though it's not a Manchurian Candidate's not a serial killer thriller or anything like that, I feel like weirdly enough, there's some parallels there. And so I would do it with Manchurian Candidate, Jonathan Demme. That's so way out in left field, right?
Well, they're both kind of slow burns, they kind of build up on this like intrigue, and I think that the slow burn itself is a great mechanism for a thriller like this.
Yeah, it's just the quietness of it, Um, again, like I paid a homage to Jonathan Demme. We would shoot a scene traditionally, and then a lot of takes I would say, okay, let's put the camera here and let's do a take where they're just speaking into the lens. And so we if we had time, we would do that throughout the entire film. And I think that plays to a lot of the silence. And if every character's got a moment and they're doing this, it feels sort of off and eerie and can't really read what they're thinking. So that was sort of a Jonathan Demme, Manchurian Candidate was like a big one for me. Is
Well,
this pre-film? Yeah.
wouldn't it be cool too if there was a great theater in Seattle called the Neptune when I was
Yeah.
in college where there was just different double features every day, like Gallipoli and Breaker Morant
Wow.
were a
Yeah.
double feature or something. And I was thinking Body Heat might go well with this. It's sexier, but like that sort of like
Yeah.
who's like, wait, who's telling the truth? Who's the real
Yeah.
person? There's that weird ending,
Oh,
she's, on
yeah.
the beach, like, is she happy? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's
I love it, and the best thing about this question is there's no wrong answers. I mean, I've had people
They're
that have
just more
made.
they're just more talented programmers than others.
Yeah. Oh, and listen, everyone's
Body
got their own
Heat.
vibe. Yeah. But
Yeah.
I've
Experience,
had
yeah.
some filmmakers who've made something like violently aggressive and say, "Oh yeah, pair with the ET," be great. It's
Yeah.
like I don't see it, but someone's got to. So, um, gentlemen, this has been an amazing conversation. I could probably bend your ears a lot longer, but I know you've got
Yeah,
things to
that was
do.
quick, man.
Yeah.
But I want to remind everyone watching this that you can see The Huntsman in theaters on February 6th. And of course, you can catch it on VOD on February 10th. Appreciate you both and your time. Looking forward to whatever you're working
Sure.
on next. You got a fan over here at Macabre Daily.
Oh, thanks,
Bye-bye.
man. Yeah.
Thank you guys
Good.
so much.